Hi everyone, and thank you for sending in your questions on the survey. We got those and we'll be doing a panel shortly. That'll be a separate video. I'm going to do a video actually answering the #1 question that people asked us, and that is what is required to be in compliance with Virginia state law with regards to homeschooling. It's pretty straightforward actually. Virginia is easy to homeschool in, so we're lucky to live in a state that doesn't require a lot of hoops to jump through. I'm going to preface everything I say by saying, first, I am not an attorney. So if you want some real legal advice, I have 2 organizations at the end that have experts in this legal field. So I'm just going to roll through this really quickly. And if you have more questions, I'll tell you where to look to find the answers. Okay, so Virginia law, there's 3 paths to homeschooling. I'm going to look over #2 and #3 down here first because they're really straightforward. #2, if you are a certified teacher in the state of Virginia, you have the option to tutor your children. So you need to send in a copy of your certification, and then you would list underneath it, you'd say, I'm going to tutor this year, and these are the lists of my children. And then that needs to be approved by the division superintendent. But if you do that and you go that route, you don't have any end of the year assessments. So that is the #2. #3 is a religious exemption statute, and for that one you need to inform your school board that the public school system is not compatible with your religious views, and you need to write a letter about that. I'm actually not really sure how people do that. That's what they're supposed to do. I know a few people who do use that exemption, but they're not in Fairfax County. So they're in the state of Virginia, but I don't really know what they do. So if you want to do #2 or #3, I'm going to just send you directly to those 2 legal sources that I'm going to talk about at the end. #1 is what most people do. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Virginia Home Instruction Statute. This is what most people do. Parents need to meet at least one of these 4 criteria. The first one, you have to have at least a high school diploma. The second one is you can be a teacher. So a certified, you just would make a copy of your teaching certification. #3 is you would be doing like an online program. Those are things like Liberty Online. They have a school for, an elementary school or whatever. It's a distance learning program thing. So you would just inform the county, you would check a box on your form and then tell them, this is the company I'm using, this is my curriculum. #4 is provide evidence that you're able to provide an adequate education for your child, even though you don't fall under 1, 2, or 3 there. You don't have a high school diploma, you are not a teacher, and you're not doing an online program. So you'd have to write a letter telling them why you can provide an adequate education, even though you don't have those. Most people I know are 1 or 2. Most people have at least a high school diploma, or they're a teacher, and you just would make a copy. You scan it in, make a copy of a diploma or your certification, and you attach it to your notification of intent. Okay, so this is the Fairfax County Notification of Intent form. It looks pretty similar in Alexandria and Arlington and other places because it's what the state requires. So the difference is up here at the top. I don't know where it is on the other ones, but up here is the address that you need to send your forms. There's also an email address right here. That is what I do. So if you want this form, what you do is you go to the Fairfax County Public School website. You go over on the left-hand side, there's a menu, you click registration, and you click home instruction. And I think this might be the first form on there. This is the one you need. So you would print this off, and then if you have more than 4 kids, you probably need to print off more than 1 form. But you put the names of the children in there, their gender, the date of birth, this grade level that you're going to be teaching this year, and then their Fairfax County base school. Then underneath the names right here, you need to click one of those 4 things. So for me, I have a couple diplomas. I click that, and then I have them scanned in, and they're a PDF. So what I do is I scan this in after I fill it out and sign it. I scan that in, add it to my PDF with my degrees after it, and then I have I just make a Word document, and I list the curriculum for each child. So the curriculum does not have to be specific at all. All you need to do is say, this child is learning math, they're learning language arts, which might include, things like phonics, reading, writing, and then, general science, we do some PE, art, music, blah, 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 whatever you want to put in there. honestly, for elementary school, lower elementary, all they care about is math and language arts. But you don't need to put in that I am using Saxon level 6 math, for this. You don't need to do any of that stuff. They don't care about the brands or the levels. They just care that you're learning and having a well-rounded education, and that you're getting those main subjects that are in their SOL listed for their grade. I'm going to say if your kids are in high school, you do need to be more detailed about what they're learning. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. There was a specific high school question. I'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, you need to be a little more specific. If they're supposed to be learning trigonometry, you're not just going to write math. You're going to write trig. And yeah, okay, we'll talk about more of that in a minute. So you need to turn in whether it's the emailed version or the paper version, you need to turn in your notification of intent along with your scanned certifications or degrees, and the list of the curriculum for all your different children. It needs to be listed separately for each child. You need to turn all of that in by August 15th. And then at the end of the year, so about 2 weeks, I don't know, it usually takes about 2 weeks after I send that in, I get something in the mail that says, have a great school year, you are home educating. The other thing you need to understand is that you're not asking permission if you're doing number 1. Number 2 and 3 are a little different. But if you're doing number 1, the home instruction, I'll go back so you're looking at it. If you're doing the Virginia Home Instruction Statute, you're not asking for permission to homeschool. You are notifying the county of your school choice. So that's something I didn't really understand when I first started homeschooling. I was nervous. Oh no, they're not going to accept, me, and then I'm going to have to come up with plan B. And that's not the case. So you are notifying them of what you're doing, and they ask for that by August 15th so that they know how many teachers to hire, and you need to respect them enough to follow the law. So August 15th, that's the date. Then if you are doing that number 1, so the Virginia Home Instruction one, if you're not doing the tutor or the religious exemption, at the end of the year, you need to provide proof of progress for each child. So you have some options on how to do that. You can do a standardized test. You can do that in your house. You can do it online. You can go to a testing site. There's lots of those around. There's some real basic ones, Iowa. There's a California Achievement one. They can do it on a computer. They can do it with a pencil. There's different options. There's Scantron options too. So you can pick a test like that, or you can do an evaluation. They call it a portfolio evaluation, and there's 2 different ways to do that one too. You can either turn a portfolio in with the superintendent. I'm actually not sure how to do that because I've never done that, but most people do a portfolio evaluation from someone who is able to do that. So that means like anyone who has a teaching certification in any state is able to look over what your kid has done. Anyone with a master's degree. I have a master's degree, but I don't do that for my own kid. We actually go to we go to an educational advisor. There's a couple that are really well known in the area. Their names get passed around in IBCHE. So if you stick around IBCHE, you'll know who it is to go to and stuff. But I would recommend, if you're going to do the evaluation, to look for someone who's actually skilled at those and really knows the homeschooling curriculums well. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now we're going to look at what you need. The end of the school year, you need to send your proof of progress in by August 1st. So if you're going to homeschool, if you decide you love this and you're going to do it again next year, you can send all of that in together. That's what I always do. So you send your proof of progress in. At the same time, you send in notification of intent for the next year and say, here's my kid, Charlie did great at this, and now we're going to do the next year, and here's all the information for that. So it's pretty simple. I know it's a little nerve-wracking the first time you do it, but it's pretty easy and straightforward. For legal advice, okay, if you want to talk to a real attorney about some of this stuff, these are the people to go to. HEVE, Home Educators Association of Virginia, that's where I got all that information 2 pages ago. That's taken straight from their website. So they are experts in the state of Virginia. If you can become members of their association, and they offer discounts. There's a lot of homeschool advice. They have like a blog and different articles, but they have lots of homeschool advice. I would encourage you to just go look on that. It's free. So you can look through that, and if you have any more questions, they might answer it. Let's see. They also have like local and state homeschool days and events, and they have a Facebook page. And if you follow that, if you're on Facebook and you follow that, you'll get all kinds of updates and information about, you know, when they have special events going on at Williamsburg or at Mount Vernon or different things like that. They have all kinds of programs that go on throughout the year that are fun. Often they're crowded, I'll warn you that one. But they have all kinds of different things going on. And they also hold annual conventions. They're not holding their convention this year, but they do have like a mom's weekend to encourage moms, and they have a couple different events they do. The big convention, they have a lot of different companies that write curriculum, so you can go and actually like physically look at the different programs and see what you like. Some people really like to be hands-on with stuff before they buy it, so that's a good opportunity. I think that's usually in Richmond. But their website is heav.org, and I highly recommend just checking it out because they really do have a lot of information that's good, and it might answer questions if you have specific questions. HSLDA is the other one. I highly recommend them. Homeschool Legal Defense Association, these people are like, they're brilliant. And they're expert legal minds in the country, so they cover all the states. If you are military and you plan on homeschooling in more than just Virginia, these are the people to know. So we do a membership through them. I think it's like around 100, maybe 125 a year for the whole family. And like I said, they're nationwide experts. And if I have any legal questions at all, if I have any legal problems, if Fairfax County, you know, knocked on my door, all I have to do is say, wait here, I got to call my attorney. And and I've never needed him, but it's really nice to have him in my back pocket. So they also, their website has all kinds of information. There's Homeschooling 101 different articles, and you can read through about different types of learning styles and teaching styles. And they have some stuff about curriculum. It's not like the best place to go to learn about all different curriculums, but they have a lot of different information on there. They have a lot about high school too. So if your kids are older, that is a good place to look for information about high schooling and record keeping and things like that. But if you have a high schooler that's on pace to do some AP classes, they offer those. So you can check those out, and they have discounts on end of the year testing and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So those are the two websites for HEAV and HSLDA. And both of them, if you had any legal questions at all, those are the places to go. Okay, other than that, we had a couple specific questions. So the one was asking, like, what do I need to keep throughout the year? You don't need to keep everything. If you're going to do a portfolio, you need something from the beginning of the year, the end of the year. You keep like some math. I would keep the first couple worksheets or maybe the first math test of the year. And then you need to keep some from the end of the year. Usually you'll have those laying around, you know, it's the end of the year, so you haven't thrown that stuff out yet. But we have a drawer in our house. And when there's something that we're kind of proud of, maybe a project that we really enjoyed or something, we stick it in the drawer. And then at the end of the year, we kind of go through and decide, all right, these are the things I want to show off. But you need to have writing sample and math. For elementary, you need to have those from the beginning of the year and end of the year. You need to usually have a list of books that you've read, whether those are read alouds. I guess I can stop sharing this. Read aloud books or books that they're reading independently, but just have a list of books, because they'll discuss some of those with them. Little ones will have to read for an evaluation at the end, and you just pick one of your favorite books or something you're currently reading. And the older kids, you need to have proof of progress for each of those subjects probably. So I'm not an expert on that one, but clock's gonna go off. But yeah, you don't need to keep everything. You don't need to keep every spelling test and worksheet and coloring page and whatever they do. You don't need to keep everything. But you do need to keep just, you know, a couple samples here and there. And like I said, usually they ask you to bring maybe a project you really enjoyed doing or something. So that is that. The other questions had to do with high school. The first question was, can I pull my kid out for a year and then put them back in? Are those credits going to count towards their transcript? The answer is yes, but I need to clarify that. If you pull them out of school for a year and you don't teach them anything that they were on pace to be learning, so if your kid needs to learn, like I said, like physics or trig or, you know, Calc 2 or something, you need to be teaching them that year. Because if you transfer back in and they've been taking Algebra 2, which they've already done, they're not going to get a transfer credit. So they need to be on pace to you know, those credits won't transfer if it's not something to transfer into. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense. So yeah, don't have them do stuff that isn't at their grade level. I guess I'll put it that way. The other thing is you just, if you do have a high schooler, you need to have a transcript. You need to you need to grade them. They need to have a report card basically and have a transcript to turn in. So that can contribute to a GPA. So if you just kind of twiddle your thumbs for a year and you don't do anything on grade level or grade them in anything, I don't really know how that would work. They probably would have to retake, you know, all those things, and I don't know that they would graduate on time. So if you're on grade level, you're giving them a transcript, you know, that they can turn in, you're good. And those two websites that I mentioned, HEAVE and HSLDA, they have all kinds of information about transcripts specifically, and they even have like a transcript creator program. There's things like that. And so those are the people I would honestly go to and ask. I'm sure they have different information you can read about that. The other question, it wasn't really a question, it was they wanted to hear from some moms that had experience moving their kids between different schooling choices, and we don't have them on our panel. So I just reached out to a bunch of different moms that I know that have switched between things, whether they went from homeschooling to private school, or they pulled them, you know, from private to public or whatever. There's one mom that's done all three. And so I asked for some advice from them, and they all said one word in common, and that was resilience. They said, your kids are more resilient than you give them credit for. It's going to be a transition, especially if they've been like in public school for 10 years, and then you're doing this weird, you know, homeschool thing, and we're all locked in our houses. I mean, it's weird, right? And so this is a little extra weird. It's not just regular homeschooling. Hopefully we will be back to regular homeschooling this year, but your kids are more resilient than you give them credit for, and transitions are hard. So sit and talk it out. You know, how are you feeling about these things? Be honest with each other. My one friend, she pulled her kids out of public school. They did 3 years and then at home, and then they went back to public school for in high school this past year. And she said her kids were way more nervous about being homeschooled than they were about going back to public high school, because they said they knew what to expect to go back to the public schools. What they didn't know you know, homeschooling was new and different and a little bit scary. And so they weren't really sure they were going to like it. They weren't sure they were going to get along. You know, there were a lot of fears. It worked for them. Their dad was deployed that first year, and so they chose to do that. And they really loved their time together, so they did it for 3 years. So yeah, she also mentioned resiliency, but yeah, new and different is scary. And going back, if you're planning to just do 1 year, they know what to expect going back. So everyone's going to have a different year this year. Nobody's going to have a normal year for any of us. And so we're all just going to do our best. But that's what people mentioned, was the resiliency thing. And it's actually not as hard to go back to public school or private school as it is to try something new, whatever that is. So. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's entrusted us with your questions. I hope I've provided a little bit of insight today. If you have other questions, those two websites are great. You can always hit me up at IBCHE at ibc.church. That's IBCHE at ibc.church. And I'll try to help you out as much as I can, or I'll point you in the direction of an organization or another parent who's maybe more experienced than I am. So thanks, and I hope this has provided some help to you.